that when it comes out of your mouth, every person in the room gets a little bit of a different image. For me, the image was most likely a series of question marks. I grew up in a family where my dad was an alcoholic, my mom was a drug addict, and from the time I was 5 years old, I didn't know who I was coming home to, who I wasn't coming home to. Fast forward, I ended up in Place of Hope, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. And that was where, in all honesty, I got my first picture of a consistent, come home, do your homework, we love you no matter what you do. And a part of being at Place of Hope was that I would go to Christ Fellowship on Wednesday nights, and I absolutely remember pretty much every detail of my first night showing up at youth group. I can tell you the guy's name that first welcomed me was Oscar. He asked me questions about myself, and it was the same for everyone there. It was a place for me where when I came in, I just knew I could be Mike. There wasn't, I'd ask myself, what's the catch? And in time, I'd realize there was no catch. They weren't asking me questions to have something on me or judge me. They were asking me questions to get to know me. They were asking me questions because they wanted to know who the real Mike was. Hey, you can be yourself here. And so I belonged way before I believed. I mean, I came in with this big, dumb hair and these really tight skateboarder pants, and I was loud and rambunctious. But to this day, those people and I'm talking students, man. I'm talking students that knew Jesus, okay? I'll get to the leaders in a second, but those kids, man, they had something, and I was like, what is different about you? Why do you care about me? The kids I go to school with care about me because they want to know if I'm going to make a joke in the classroom or what dumb thing I'm going to do next, something like that. They cared about me because they wanted to get to know me because they knew someone named Jesus. And so in time, I mean, you can imagine my picture of Jesus coming from this broken home into this place, into Christ Fellowship for the first time was acceptance. There is no catch here. We want you here. We desire to know the real you. You are free to be you. And so that is part of my story. And I guess my response to when people ask me, Mike, what was different about you? What was different about me was there wasn't very much different about me. I was a kid that came in, you could say off the streets, wherever you want to say. There wasn't anything significantly cool about me. There wasn't anything significantly special about me, aesthetically or anything like that. It was just these kids knew Jesus, and they knew that Jesus loved the world. They knew that God gave his only son to die for the world to redeem us from our sin. That made all the difference. So I guess my biggest surprise was that now when I work with my students, I identify that kid.
That's good.
There's stories even of today or this past week where a kid was telling me he was getting picked on and that he was from this side, and I tell him my story, and he's like, no, and I'm like, yes, man. I'm like, do you know Jesus? And he's like, yeah, I kind of know Jesus. And I'm like, well, dude, you should just keep hanging out with us, keep getting to know Jesus a little bit more. Come along. It's okay to have questions. I'm sure tons of us in this room have questions. This is a place where the doors, we sung it earlier, the doors of God's heart are flung wide open. So let's let the church reflect that. You have questions? Throw them. Here you are. You're in a safe place where you can have questions. You have doubts? We just talked about tons of things that could easily instill doubts and fears and tons of life sticky situations. The doors are wide open. We're here not to get something. It's coming to service isn't about rating the service from a scale to 1 to 10. It's about communion with your God and fellowship with the people that are striving towards God together. And so, yeah, that's
good, Mike. One of the things I love about Mike is when I talk to him, I think there is something special about you, Mike, but when I talk to him about, Christ Fellowship and his journey, and we were talking about bringing you on our team here, he said, you know what, Wednesday nights became the time of the week that I lived for. I lived through the week to get to Wednesday night to be at church. And now he gets to create that same environment for so many other kids. It's awesome. And you're doing it. We celebrated last month that they had 500 kids worth